Before we jump right into this episode, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors of the podcast, Switch Nutrition. Now, more specifically, I want to talk about foundational health. There are so many different supplements out there online and different gurus telling you this and that, but I love to strip it right back to the foundations and what are the things that we can be taking every single day to help with our foundational health. And these products right in front of me are the ones that I take every single day to make sure that I am well equipped to attack the day's activities and make myself feel good throughout the day. It starts in the morning with these two products here, the Hydrate, making sure I am hydrated, and the creatine, all put into a liter of water. Throughout the day, I then go and have this collagen protein within my Greek yogurt bowls that I make, and you guys would see all over my socials. And then to finish off the night, I have the Adrenal, more specifically the chocolate flavor, which is a sleep formula filled with ashwagandha, zinc, and magnesium. And I have a scoop of this 30 minutes before bed in hot water, kind of like a hot chocolate with a little dash of milk, and it tastes amazing and I sleep like a baby. If you want to try out any of these supplements, you can actually go to the link in the show notes or the description below, and it is my collections page on their website, which has all of the supplements that I take and love, and you can use code Chris Griffin and you'll get 20% off your order. Alternatively, you can go to www.switchnutrition.com.au and use the code Chris Griffin at checkout to get yourself 20% off all of these foundational health products that I absolutely love and take every single day. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. I need to take a second to talk about this thing that's on my wrist called a Whoop. It is the ultimate health and fitness tracker. Now, if you're watching this episode, you would see that not only am I wearing a Whoop, but Tom is also wearing a Whoop, and that is because it is the ultimate health and fitness tracker. It is a game changer when it comes to achieving your health and fitness goals. This thing tracks everything that I do. It tracks my sleep, it tracks my training, it tracks my stress levels, which has been awesome when I'm in those high stress days and I've got so much to do. I can track the things that I'm doing in my life that helps increase my stress, which isn't good, or helps decrease my stress, which is very good. I love this thing. It never leaves my wrist. Quite literally, the only time it does is when I'm changing the color of the band. If you want to try out Whoop and you want to take your health and fitness to the next level, you can go to join.whoop.com/Chris and you'll get 1 month completely free, and they'll send you out a band completely free. Alternatively, you can click the link in the description or the show notes below and you will go to join.whoop.com/Chris and you'll get 1 month completely free, so you can try Whoop today. But without further ado, let's get into the episode with Tom. Tom, before the show, I got you to write down a quote for me, something that you love, something that came to mind straight away. And you wrote, "Good people wake up every single day and try to empty the ocean with a ladle." I'm so intrigued by that quote and what that means to you, brother.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wish I knew who said it or where I even found it. I think it would have been like a corny Pinterest page when I was like 15.
You said you were 15 when you started living by that quote?
And, at the time I was kind of, going through some family stuff and just life things, as everyone does growing up. My story is not unique. And that quote kind of made me realize that life owes you nothing, but expects everything. And I think past that point, I kind of understood the value in investing 100% of the things that you can give without the expectation of a return. And that's just set me up really nicely with everything I do, because now I don't have, even friendships, people I meet, the things I do, I never go into them with an expectation of I'm owed something or I need something out of this. And I think that's really set me up to, do things to a level that I probably wouldn't be able to if I was going into things with expectations.
Yeah, well, I speak about it all the time, but like when the reality doesn't meet the expectation, the gap between that is disappointment.
Yeah. If
you have all these expectations on life, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And so I feel like doing things, as you said there, which is really cool, is doing things without expecting something in return is so powerful, because you kind of realize that like you're doing it for a certain reason and it's not the expectation of getting something back in return. You mentioned just in there before though about, going through certain challenges with family but my story is not unique. Why did you brush over something like that so quickly and just sort of say it's not unique?
Yeah. I don't know. I think I have always, because I like the saying of like the hardest thing that's ever happened to you is the hardest thing that's ever happened to you. And I prefer to, I don't want people to look at what I've gone through and feel anything other than relatability. Like, I don't want people to think that my story or what I have done with my life is any different to anyone else, because it's not. Like, I'm such a ordinary dude who just has maybe an above average work ethic and a little bit more resistance to hard things than, the average person. But I was never super talented. I, haven't had, like, there's just nothing that makes me feel extraordinary. And I think that makes me feel like, even with my challenges, I'm like, yeah, I've gone through challenges and they were extremely hard for me, but they're not different. I could throw a rock and hit someone who's been through something similar to me. And I think that gives me not a point of like that I'm sort of, I don't feel like those things had an impact on me, but it's more so like, everyone's gone through their shit. Everyone's had things. And to think that I'm any different to anyone else is, I'd be kidding myself. It's not,
But those challenges, they certainly shape you and they help influence the things that you make.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're not like an extraordinary person. You're just a normal guy, which is the same for most people. That's the reality of it. What made you want to strive for extraordinary results? And obviously going into business, it's not the easiest path, and there's certainly a lot of challenge that comes with that. There's a lot of longer days, a lot of dedicated, strict work to do so. Like, what made you want to strive for extraordinary results, being a not extraordinary person to begin with?
I actually don't think I did. I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, I think I do now. And I think as I've developed and as I've built things and as I've built confidence, I see it it's like a staircase you climb, and each new level you get to on that spiral staircase is kind of like a new level of confidence. And each time the distance between those levels gets bigger and bigger, but in your mind, you're just climbing another level. So in the beginning, I didn't have crazy ambitions. I didn't see myself as, you're going to do incredible things. I never had that kind of moment as a kid, but I just kept doing things and kept getting proven, I guess, not proven right, but I kept experiencing outcomes where I realized that, A plus B equals something. And I realized that if I put things into life, I get things out. And that's given me the confidence over and over again. Like, my ambitions now are enormous, and I have massive goals for the future, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. But it didn't start out like that. It started out like, I'm a creative person. I want to share some of that with the world. It started with, my whole Instagram account that afforded me this house and all the things that I do now started as like a burner account. So my mates from high school wouldn't know that I was trying to do photography. Like, I was like, I can't post it on that account because everyone follows me. So I'm going to start a new one where no one in my family or my life follows me. It was never like, this massive thing. And I think because it's like what we spoke about. We went for a run before this podcast, and it was what we spoke about with being relatable. And it's like, it puts you on the same level as everyone else. And it's important to recognize, like, the people you admire, the people you look up to in every arena started doing and struggling at the exact same things that you do every single time without exception. Some of them might have had, they might have been particularly talented at a certain thing and that gave them the confidence, but initially they lacked that confidence. So most people would benefit a lot from understanding, like, in most cases, it's not like this amazing story that was painted in the stars. It's like, no, it's just some dude that tried something or some chick that tried something and got a little bit of a positive feedback loop. And then that's kind of spiraled into this crazy existence that looks extraordinary. And I think I would be lying if I said I was like a kid going, I'm going to do amazing things. I had the ambitions of every kid. Like, I was a swimmer when I was younger and I was like, I'm going to go to the Olympics, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. But that was it. It wasn't like
one step at a time. And what I'm seeing here is you saying positive feedback loop. You're kind of taking one step at a time, and then through the progression when taking that step and getting a little reward, a little lick of the ice cream, you go, oh, that tastes good.
Yeah.
I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. Do you think it can be a slippery slope, or do you think it's all amazing to have that sort of addiction to that progression and the feeling of getting better at something and improving?
Oh yeah, it's a massive slippery slope. Yeah, it's like everything. Yeah, this life comes with its consequences. It's not. Yeah, it's not like a. Yeah, it's not what you might expect. And then also even the positive feedback loop idea comes with it. Like, I don't think like bad actors in our space, like people who might take advantage of other people or scam people or all that sort of stuff, I don't even think those people are evil. I think usually it's just a positive feedback loop that pointed them in the wrong direction. I think most people, you know, they might do something that's less than savory, but they made a bit of money from it. And then they're like, oh, well, this is a good thing. Like, I don't really, you know, who cares how I made my money? And then they do it again and again and again and again. And before they know it, they're, you know, FTX kind of character who's scamming people out of billions and billions of dollars. Like, I don't think people are inherently bad. I think that they kind of get caught on the wrong feedback loops. Same with, like, you know, as kind of crazy as it is, it's like, it's all, you know, our addiction to fitness and business and content creation could have been pointed in a different direction, and we could have just as easily been, you know, drug addicts, alcoholics.
We're all motivated. It's just a matter of what we're motivated at doing. And that could be video games. It could be whatever it is. And then once we can find something that drives us and we can switch all that motivation and focus towards it, it can go from being focused on bad to really good, and equally the other way around. You mentioned something just before about making an account, a burner account, so that your friends didn't see it. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was telling myself that it was a right idea, because I was like, oh, the people there, they don't want to see it.
Yeah.
So I'll make a new one. But it was just because I didn't want them to see it.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. But do you think that feeling and that fear of what other people are going to think of you when doing something different or against the grain, did that play on your mind a fair bit when starting out? And also, do you think that's a massive restrictor for most people trying to do things that they want to do?
Yeah, full on. Yeah, 100%. I think it's funny. I'm always very hesitant to criticize social media or anything like that, because in my mind, I was a super introverted, very insecure kid. And I have sort of, through my career and through sharing content on the internet, have become a much more confident and have the ability to be outgoing and meet new people and put myself in situations. But at my core, I'm like a massive introvert who would rather sit inside those four walls in my office every single day and make content in my own little space than do even something like this. So I think it was just a process of learning to, I guess, be more confident. So I'm, you know, very hesitant to criticize social media, but yeah, I think it stops a lot of people from doing what they want to do. And there's no, like, I actually made a piece of content about this recently where a lot of people will be like, you know, the spotlight effect, where everyone's so focused on themselves that they're not actually thinking about you. And there's the saying, like, no one's actually thinking about you as much as you think they are, and all that sort of shit that you'll tell people. But I made this piece of content where I'm like, the only real thing that can get you out of that state is just to go, fuck them. And even if they are thinking about you, if they're not, if they are criticizing, if they're not, if they're doing whatever behind your back or they're not, you have to, in your own mind, go, my own priorities, my own life is more important than the opinions of everyone around me, including family, including friends, including your partner, potentially. Like, a lot of people, you know, the classic is the bullies from high school. But most of the time, it's your girlfriend who doesn't think it's cool that you're trying to make content on the internet, or your mum who wants you to get a job, or, you know, your brother who's a carpenter who's like never going to understand the career that you've chosen to do. Like, most of the time, it's not some bully from high school that you've not seen in 10 years. Most of the time, it's someone in your life that you then have to go, their opinion of me is not more important than the opinion of my own. And yeah, you kind of have to, the only way to help is just to go, you know what, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I feel like when you can start doing things for you, that's when things start to change in your life. Because when you realize that no matter what happens in your life, you're always going to have yourself by your side. Like if your head hits the pillow at night, no matter what's happening in your life, you're going to have you.
Yeah.
So like you should respect that person and the decisions that that person wants to make more than everyone else.
Yeah.
And when you can understand that, that's when you can actually start doing things for you and really living life on your terms. And that the first step to that, as you said, is going fuck you to everyone else. Like literally a big old fuck you to all of them.
Yeah.
Because you go like, look, you guys matter, but not as much in my life as me. And being selfish is actually so important to then be able to create a life that allows you to be selfless with everything else that you're doing.
Yeah. Huge.
I think it's so important. When I look back at, you know, how people find each other, like we were just saying just before, like, oh, you saw a video on online. When I first found you, I got sent to you by one of my best mates, Sam.
Really?
He was about to join a cohort of your Time to Build. Yeah.
No way.
And he was about to join it, and he just basically sent me a thing, and he just goes, mate, follow this guy. He like he's a beast. His funnels are phenomenal. Like everything's all great. And yeah, the reason he didn't join is because I can't actually remember why he didn't join. I'll find out for you. It'd be intrigued to know. But I remember he sent it to me, and I checked out your page and everything, and I just saw it. And it's so crazy how your word can get the power of like, I trust what he has to say a lot. And I go, okay, if he says he's good, he's probably good.
Yeah.
And then that's how it stems from there. When you create your content and when you grow as a person, grow as a figure online, do you feel like there's a main contributor for your growth? Do you think it's people organically seeing you? Do you think it's sharing from other friends? Is it a combination of both? Or what do you think holds the most weight in terms of growing social media, both monetizing it, but then also follower wise and all the rest of it?
Well, I mean, I didn't really understand this concept until very recently, but there's like width and then there's depth of the audience that you have. This is how, you know, there can be some dude who's super good looking with 1 million followers who
Makes
can barely
no money.
move t-shirts.
Yeah.
It's like he's got a really wide audience but no depth. And I think people really underestimate that interaction. Like the person, your best mate, going, you need to check out this guy. It immediately crosses the barrier of like intrigue, of testing, and goes straight into trust. Yeah. Which is huge. And I think people really underestimate, especially on social media. They think that because it's social media and because it's new, it's not word of mouth. It's not traditional business. It's like, no, it's exactly the same way. Like, why do you go to the coffee shops or the lunch spots you do? Because a friend had a good experience there and probably told you to go, and then you went and you had a good experience, and now you tell everyone else to go there. It's the same thing with social media. I think like, yeah, you want to build a big audience, and I fully get the desire to build an audience to hundreds of thousands or potentially millions. I want to get to millions. I always wanted to be at hundreds of thousands, but now that I'm here, the only thing I want is depth. It's like, how can I wouldn't, if I never gained another follower in my life, but I converted a higher percentage of my current following into fans of what I do and trust me and have depth feel like they can relate to what I'm doing, I'd pick that every day over another 700,000 followers.
Yeah, well, Lewis Mocker talks about, and I think it's Ray Dalio or someone, he says 1,000 raving fans or true fans.
Yeah.
If you have 1,000 people paying you $100 a month, that's $100,000 a month from 1,000 people. Yeah. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like Lewis has 1,000 people paying him $100 a month, and some of them pay $200 a month and stuff. But like, that's $100,000 a month from only 1,000 people.
No,
like,
I talk about this openly in my programs and then in my content as well. It's like, for my business to make $1 million a year, I need 650 people, which is like not a lot of people. Whereas so many content creators, so many people who want to start social media, they're like, oh, I need millions. It's like, no, you just need a couple hundred to a few thousand devoted people. And yes, of course, you know, your 1,000 true fans, you're not going to have 1,000 followers and 1,000 true fans. If you do, you would be writing books about your success. But it's always going to be a small percentage of that. But I think you can do things that help you build that depth straight away and help you build trust with people. I think like having something that makes you more than just a person that they watch videos from can convert at a much higher percentage of people that actually trust what you do.
And what does that look like? Like, what are the things that you can do to automatically grow that trust?
Well, it just has to come from, it really has to come from a genuine, authentic place. It has to be you. And I think that's why I'm such a, I preach this a lot of like, you need to be you in your own content as much as you possibly can. And a good example of this, and it's the only story I can sort of tell to really emphasize this point, but like, I think it's like 0.4% of the entire population have ever done an Ironman, which is like a tiny, tiny percentage of the population. But every single time I run my program, which is like, we'll get 100, and we had 183 in the last one. We'll probably get close to 200 this time. And we float between 150 and 200. Every single time I get at least 30 to 50 people that have either done an Ironman, plan on doing an Ironman in the next few months, or are thinking of doing an Ironman in the next few years. That number doesn't make any sense.
That's fascinating.
The math doesn't add up. But the reason for it is that I have, like, because I share, you know, my journey in endurance sport and the things that I do, and, you know, the crossroads between high performance athletes and high performance entrepreneurs. Suddenly, for those people who have an interest in business and personal development, but also do like ultra endurance stuff, I'm their favorite person on the internet. They're not going to learn from a Dan Coe or anyone else who's got great business advice, but doesn't do their other hobby. And it's like, that could be, you know, for some people, that could be the fact that you make your own beer. And it's like, you've got this lethal business, but then you make your own beer, or you paint Warhammer figurines, or you know, do sim racing, or you love this niche, like whatever. Like, it could be that one thing that you think is boring that no one's going to be interested in, that if you start sharing it in your content, might be the one thing that actually converts a massive percentage of your audience to go, oh my God, I never knew Chris was really into his craft beer. He makes his own beer in his backyard. That's so awesome. He's my favorite person on the internet. And then they'll trust everything else you do. They'll trust your fitness programs more. They'll trust your business programs. They'll trust your podcast. They'll trust everything you say more because they feel like there's a real human being on the other side.
Yeah, so true authenticity is the key. It's like, okay, what are the things you actually do, and they're your hobbies and the things you really enjoy? You need to make sure that you're documenting that as well as providing dense value with what you're actually offering to.
Yeah.
So I think when I look at yours, I look at your content is tailored specifically for what you're selling as well. Like, you're providing the value on that front, but then you're also doing this mindset piece and this really cool, like, mindset motivation aspect to your content as well, which kind of gets people really inspired and G'd up, I guess you could say. And then the next post is this carousel of just dense value on how to make money or something. Yeah. I just love this. I'm really inspired by it because I think maybe the piece that when you talk about depth a lot, you go, for me personally, I try and provide a lot of depth as well. And I try and be really open and honest and share my lessons. But I think like the practical piece that you do is something that I could take a piece from and like really try and add that onto my suite to really bring that depth closer and closer. Yeah. I want to go to this point where just before you were talking about really introverted, you just want to chill in that room and make content. Yeah. People that are introverts, a lot of the time when I speak to them, making content and like sitting on a podcast, that's for sure. Like, seems like the scariest thing they could possibly do. Like, it just seems like content's an interesting one because obviously you're doing it alone, but people still look at it, press play on the camera. Not me. Yeah. Where did this stem from to make content?
Well, it had to be, the confidence was built slowly over time, I think is the first and probably the most important thing. Like, when I first started making content, it was photography. I was faceless. No one even knew what I looked like or what I sounded like or anything like that. It took me between 2016 and 2018 for me to even make a face-to-camera Instagram story. So this took a long time to build up to this sort of confidence. But I think it's a really interesting one. I find it really easy the more people I think it's impacting. Like, if I feel like I'm able to shotgun information and it's not like towards one human being, I find that fine. Like, I spoke last year, I went to Utah to speak at some workshop thing, and I was on stage and I was speaking in front of, I think it was like between 50 and 100 people, and I loved it. It was awesome. I thought it was the best thing ever. I had
In
so
Utah?
much fun in Utah. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I love this. And then I got off stage, and because it was an intimate group, I then spoke one-on-one with every single person that I just gave an hour presentation to. And it was like, leave me alone. Even though I've just spoken to everyone in the room, I found the one-on-one conversations afterwards much more intimidating than just speaking on stage. And I think obviously content in my own office, in my own room, in front of a camera, it's like, it's just me, really. Like if I always used to say because I'll wear like invisible headphones when I'm making content, it feels like I'm just having a conversation to myself, and I'm talking to myself and I'm giving advice to myself. It just happens to be broadcasted to other people. And I'm sure you feel the same with the podcast sometimes. It's like, maybe not with a guest, but if you were doing a solo podcast, you'd be like, this is just me having a chat to myself. It just so happens to be broadcast to thousands of people. So it's a bit different. I think introverts actually make really good content creators, because I have always joked that introverted people actually just have a louder internal dialogue. So all their social energy is spent having the conversation with the person between their eyes. Like, it's not actually a thing of not having social energy. I'm having such, like, even right now as I'm saying this, I'm having an internal conversation with myself about what I'm going to say. And that's exhausting, but not in a way that's like, it just means that by the time I go to speak to someone else, I'm like, I've already fucking had 150 conversations today. I don't really want to do this. And
the
I think
internal dialogue, that's so fascinating. Do you think being an introvert, a byproduct of that is overthinking?
Overthinking, but introspection, I think, is probably the healthier perspective. Introspection is just like having strong, I guess, internal, I don't want to say self-awareness, but it is kind of like self-awareness. Like, you've got a very strong awareness of you in the space and your own thoughts and how your own thoughts are impacting you. Because like overthinking is introspection to the extreme. It's just been extremely introspective to the point where you are literally overthinking things. But I think a much healthier way of describing it would be, I'm a very introspective person. I think a lot, and I overthink situations, and I think about the things I'm thinking about. And I think about, how certain thoughts have consequences on everything, but that makes for the content I make. Like, sometimes people will be like, I'll get comments all the time. They're like, you're reading my mind. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm literally just making content that's swirling around in my own head. It just so happens you have the same thoughts that I do.
Yeah.
So it's, I think introverts actually make great content creators because they have thought about their thoughts so many times that when it comes out on camera, it's a well thought out piece of content. I think, like, you'll notice throughout the podcast, I'll drop a lot of ums and ahs and likes sometimes if I'm talking about something that I've either never talked about before, or if it's like, a thought I haven't really thought out. But as soon as I drop into something that's either been in my content or something that I think about a lot, they're gone. And it's like, well, there we go. All the ums and ahs disappear, and it becomes this almost scripted piece of content. But that's just because I've said it thousands
in
and
your
thousands
mind
and thousands of times. Yeah.
Do you think that a byproduct of it then, of being introverted, do you think starting becomes harder? Because for me, when I look at it and I go, I'm very extroverted, like extremely extroverted, to the point where I could be yawning tired and you put me in a group of all these people and I'm like full of energy.
That's crazy to me.
Like, yeah, right. And I know introverted's the opposite. Like,
Yeah.
like the way I define it is, if you go into a room with people, do you go in your shell and get tired? Or does that drain you? Or when you go in, does it give you energy? And I think that's the split.
Yeah, if you put me in a room full of people, I find it very like, it's just uncomfortable. It's not like, I find it, it's intimidating. And the idea of like walking into a conversation and all that sort of stuff is really intimidating. The really obvious example is like, most content creators are exceptional with like their daily stories and like updating people constantly and filming their lives and having all this B-roll and stuff of everything that they're doing. I am horrific at that. Me and Makelia, like, for someone who makes content for a living, we have no photos of us. We have no like videos of us. We've purposely had to like actively go, this is a cool moment. Let's film it. So we've got something in the future, because it's just like not my natural state is not, and it's not to say that I'm not the person I am on camera. I'm the person I would like to think I'm similar to the person I am on camera, but it's just that the person I am on camera is me, and me in my own room as much as it is me, out in public. I'm probably a little less bravado and a little less confrontational. Yeah. Like I like to do that in my content, but yeah, it's really interesting. I've always thought that I think introverts would usually make for better content creators.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. I think when I look at like Mr. Beast, he would be quite an introverted guy.
Yeah, big time.
And it's like I see that because you can just do it alone. No one has to see it. It's not in public.
Yeah.
Until you post it and stuff. But by that point, you've already done the work, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Like all you need to do is press upload. But as we said just earlier. And you said it does. Do you think being an introvert, it's harder to start posting and to start doing that thing?
Yeah.
Because if you're worried about maybe what people are going to think as much.
Yeah, I think you'd definitely be more worried about the consequences of like people seeing it. And I think if you overthought too much, like if you really thought about, oh my God, my mum's going to see this, or my brother's going to see this, or, whoever's going to see this, yeah, it would be intimidating. Like I still don't like making content with McKeely in the house, like because she can hear me doing all the fuck ups and speaking on camera, and you know what I mean. It's like I fully understand that, but I think that just comes back to I don't have to make content like you make content, and you don't have to make content like I make content. We can do it our own way. Like I can be in my own office inside the same four walls, and I've said this so many times, but it's like you really need to figure out what your natural space is, what your natural state is, it's like your zone of genius. Like you need to figure out where your zone of genius is and then lean into that. Like I used to think I wanted to be a travel filmmaker when I first started out, like as everyone does. You look at like Sam Calder and all the what's the other guy's name? Anyway, a bunch of those people that were traveling the world making content. Jay Alvarez. Yeah. I used to think I wanted to do that, and then I realized like I hate dealing with clients, which is the whole thing. You're just a freelancer who happens to be doing freelance projects internationally. I hate the idea of living out a suitcase. I love my routine. I'm maniacally obsessed with my fitness. So like if I have a week where I'm traveling in a country where I can't go for a run, it's like, I'd rather, send me back home, please. I don't want to be here. So there is a lot of situations where I used to think I wanted to be something, but it wasn't till I really leaned into, okay, you know what? Most people might look at what I do for work and go, fuck, he runs his entire business and makes all his content from the one room in his house, and he never travels, and he just does the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, this is my heaven. Like, I'm stoked. The fact that I have time to train once usually, or sometimes twice a day, the fact that I can finish work and McKeely and I can sit in this room and watch Netflix every day at the end of the day, the fact that I can make all of my content and run my entire business without interacting with another human being, like,
and make a whole lot of money while doing it too.
Yeah, it's like this is my dream. And I think I don't think you have to, if you are an introverted person and you want to make content, which a lot of people do, but you're intimidated by the idea of like, oh, well, I can't film my entire life. I can't, I could never film videos in public. I could never talk about this, and I could never get my shirt off on camera, or whatever you're going to do if you're in the fitness space. It's like, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. And there will be the catch-22 as it comes back to what we talked about with relatability. There will be hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of other people who are exactly like you, who would rather follow someone like you than someone like the person that you think you need to be. So by trying to be someone else, you're actually going to alienate yourself from the people you're actually supposed to be connected with. And people can see through the bullshit. So it's like if I'm following someone who, runs a business and then also trains for triathlons and stuff, and I see some discrepancies between my life and their life that they're putting out. Like if I see someone who's training for an Ironman and they don't talk about how tired they are, they don't talk about how difficult it is to eat enough, they don't talk about how difficult it is to balance with relationships, and how it is the most selfish pursuit on the planet training for an Ironman, if they don't talk about those things, I know they're full of shit and I'm not going to trust them. Whereas if I follow someone who's doing it authentically and they're actually a real person and they talk about those things, I'll be like, oh my God, this is my person. So
I reckon it can. I do agree with all this and I love it. I also think though, you can be introverted, and if you do the things that are uncomfortable enough times, you still get better.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, Ryan Tuckwood, he's got the #1 sales training business in Australia. And it's phenomenal. It's called Swish, Selling with Integrity and Selling Honestly. And it's great. He was the most introverted person you can possibly think of. They went on Shark Tank and his business partner had to do all the talking because he was just numb. He couldn't speak, right?
Yeah.
He's now probably the best person I've ever seen on stage. He speaks on stage. He's funny. He's engaging. He wears these bright, standing out there suits, and they're always different colors and really rogue suits. And he looks like the most common thing, but extremely extroverted. So I do believe playing to your strengths and doing what feels comfortable is great, but I also believe you can challenge that. And if there's things that you kind of go, oh, I envy that person can do that, I think it's stupid for you to say that you can't eventually get to that stage, because you certainly can.
No, of course. I would 100% agree. And like I said, I owe a lot of the confidence I have, I owe my ability to be sitting here doing this right now to the fact that I have a job in social media, because it's taught me to be confident and express myself. And it gave me the positive feedback loop of like, if I put something out and I be myself, then I get a positive return. It's like, I owe a lot of the person I've become and my ability to be extroverted in certain situations to the fact that I have a job in social media. So 100% you can develop. But I think back to the starting thing, I think, if your biggest hurdle is that you don't want to make content in public and that's stopping you from even starting, that's stupid. You need to make something in the way that you feel comfortable making. And then slowly, like we said, it's a never-ending staircase, but the distance between the floors just gets bigger. Yeah. Like, you can tackle step 1, and step 1 might be sitting in your room, making sure no one's home if you've got roommates, and just making something that you feel comfortable with. And then second step might be like, okay, you know what? Let's make it when my roommates are home now. And then the third step is like, okay, we'll figure it out from here. Yeah, and it definitely progressed. Like, I even know for me, when I first started filming in public, that was scary, very scary. Like walking down the street or being out in front of the cafe and having my phone up like this while I'm filming a story, like that was really scary. And now I can literally do it whenever. But it all comes down to starting, and this is what you're saying. And I want to play this video you posted the other day, which I love.
You've wasted years of your life preparing.
Oh shit, let's start this again. I'm going to play this. This video is so good, and I really want to play this.
I like making this one.
Is this going to work? I wonder if
Many of you have wasted.
You know what?
Oh, is it really going to... We're going to...
Yeah.
Here we go.
Years of your life preparing to act. Waiting, contemplating, thinking about doing the thing. All you are doing is wasting your time. If you give yourself no other option but to get it done, you suddenly place yourself in a rare category of human being that takes action. The delta between where you are and everything you've ever wanted to achieve is on the other side of saying fuck it and taking action. There's no complicated system, there's no principle you need to follow, there's nothing but action. So if you use this moment, if you use right now to put your fucking phone down and take action, your entire life will change like that.
Yeah.
Many of you.
Oh, how good is that?
I like that one.
So powerful with the audio as well. I love that audio.
Yeah. Kyle's a demon. My editor is a demon. But I see, that's like that's the content I love to make, because that's the content I think I needed when I started out. I think I always needed someone to just be. Yeah, I needed someone to just be like, do the things you want to do. And who cares what other people think? Like, it's impossible to... I think it's impossible to logically put someone... I love this line from... I think it's... God. I think it was like Jocko Willink who said it. But he's like, you need to use logic and emotion when you're taking action. So it's like, when the logic doesn't make sense, when the odds are against you, you need to use emotion. You need to get angry. You need to get upset. You need to get excited. You need to do the things that you need to do. But then when emotion is justifying inaction, if it's saying like, you don't actually want to do this, dude, this is too scary, then you need to go, no, logically, this is exactly what I need to do. And you need to float between those two things of, yeah, sometimes the logic doesn't make sense. Sometimes, like we said, the spotlight effect, you know what? I get it. People aren't thinking about me, but it feels like they're thinking about me. And then you need to lean into emotion and go, fuck you, I'm going to do this because this is my life and I want to take advantage of it. So yeah, I think you have to, you like the action thing is it sounds ridiculous, but everything I've built was just one decision. And it's impossible for me to sort of quantify that or explain how that happened or, justify it in your mind, but it was all just one decision that then spiraled into everything I have now, which is crazy, but it's true. And if you talk to anyone, usually it was just one moment where, there's this idea with entrepreneurship where usually entrepreneurs, their most successful business is born out of something that made them feel like a hero when they were a kid. So it's like if you're someone who, was picked as your captain of your class in like prep and that made you feel amazing, then you need to be probably something that involves you leading a team or public speaking or running some program or something that empowers people because that's what you felt empowered by. If you're someone who's like, someone like me, for example, as a kid, I was a little bit overweight. I didn't grow until like the 8th grade. So I'm quite tall now, but I wasn't like this. And then when I did grow, I was very thin. And it all happened really quickly. And I just never felt like... I remember I walked out on the football team in like the 10 Bs or something. And I got flattened. And like my first game, because I was like 6'2" and like 72 kilos or something. But then like years later, I was able to build up to what I wanted to do. But in terms of my only thing that I was ever, I guess, gifted at, I remember the only thing as a kid was I was good at drawing. And that was it. The only thing that anyone, my family, my friends, my brothers, my school kids, like I would never get picked for a sports team. I would never get picked for something as far as like a group project. But as soon as the teacher said, this involves drawing, the entire class would turn to me and go, I want Tom in my group. And that made me feel empowered. And that's probably the reason why I now want to empower that in other people in terms of like building a business that's in your own terms and creatively, expressing yourself and building a brand. Because at one stage, I felt empowered by my ability to create things. And I think, if you can really dig into your childhood and go, okay, what was the thing for me? And we all have them. We all have like, as minute as it might be, maybe you were the kid that was like, I don't know, maybe you were the kid that was the one, whenever they were organizing teams at lunch for like tag, everyone was like, you know what, Brian's really organized. Let's get him to organize this thing. And then suddenly you should be someone that's managing people. It's like really think about what was the moment as a kid that made you feel like a hero, made you feel empowered. That's probably something that you should be doing because that'll make you feel the best.
Focusing on the strengths. I'm
focusing
hearing
on the strengths.
Common theme of focus on the things that you're good at and honing in on that, because then you get rewarded for that thing and you get praise for that thing.
Yeah.
That praise gives you the confidence that you're good at that thing. Yeah. And also when you're good at something, there's a lot less friction to actually doing it because you enjoy it.
Well, I think it's like, I get the whole thing of like, you should work on your weaknesses and you should be a very well balanced person. But in my mind, I'm like, why? You can achieve some incredible things by being good at like 2 things. Like I'm a bit of a fucking idiot in most situations in my life, but you ask me to build a brand and a business, I'm lethal. And that's one narrow lane that I'm good at. And yeah, like, you know what? Bakili wants to paint some walls in this house. I really just want to pay someone to come do it because I can't do that at all. The idea of like going to Bunnings and buying like painter's tape and all these things, it's like, nah, I don't. Fuck no, I don't want to do that. Where I'd rather just pay thousands of dollars for someone to come and do something that'll take them 45 minutes. But in terms of like the thing that I'm very good at, absolutely, I'll nail it. And I think leaning into at least like, life is so long, you can become exceptional at things like periodically. So maybe for 20 to 30, you become really good at something athletically, or you become really good at speaking, or you become really good at one thing. And then in your 30s, you become really good at another thing. And then in your 40s, those two things come together and everyone thinks you're a genius. And it's like, no, you just spent 10 years, and then 10 combining them. Like it's crazy. I mean, the classic example is, I think I have this line where I say that enjoyment will get you out on your good days, but the rest is discipline. It's like people think they need to find their passion or find the thing that they enjoy or find the thing that they're good at. It's like, no, enjoyment, passion, and like a gift only make you slightly better than everyone else. But then the rest is still discipline on top of it. So really, if you're good at something, it just increases the capacity of your discipline. Like I have this story when I was, and I've told this story a few times, so all the ums and ahs are going to disappear. I have this story of when I was training for an Ironman. It was like April before the race, and the race was in June. This was April, and I was running with a run club at the time, and they were running this charity event that they called Project 27. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll join. And a bunch of people were doing it. And I just assumed, I was like, oh, this will be like a 27K run on like a Sunday. I'm already doing long runs at like 30 to 35K. So this will be perfect. I'll do that and then I'll do a little bit extra. And I was like, and I assumed it was like Project 27, 27Ks on like the 27th of April. Little did I know, it got to like Wednesday. We had track on Thursday morning. And someone came up to me and they text me and they're like, so are you good for Saturday? And I'm like, what's Saturday? And they're like, Project 27. And I was like, what? And then they go, yeah, it's this weekend. I'm like, oh, I thought it was the 27th. They're like, no, it's Saturday. And I was like, so what is it? Not knowing. It turns out that it was like a 27-hour charity run at a track in teams of 4, or teams like a group of people that are running the whole time around this track. It started at 10 a.m. It was actually in Geelong, which is like a couple hundred meters from my house at a track here. And they talked about how I was in like a team of these people and I had to show up at 10 a.m. But I was like 8 weeks out from my Ironman, and my coach had scheduled 180, like an override, which is like where we ride over distance. And it just means you have to go out and either run over a marathon, ride over the 180, or swim over the 3.8. And it's basically to give you confidence in that distance, because usually you don't, that sort of distance will wipe you out for a few days. So I had an override scheduled that day, and what that meant is I could either go and justify in my own mind and go, you know what, I'm going to be running 50, 60 kilometers over the next 27 hours. I don't need to do this ride. Or my enjoyment in my training, my passion for my training could carry me to the point where I could kick in discipline. And I got up at 3:30 in the morning. I rode from my house to Sorrento and back. I did 190 kilometers. Then I got in the car, drove to Geelong, and then ran 60 kilometers over the next 27 hours and like slept in the middle of the track down in Geelong, and then went back home Sunday afternoon and got back into another week. And the only reason that happened, the only reason I chose to do that is not because, I'm more talented or fitter or enjoy it more. It's because I enjoy it more than most. And then my discipline carried me much further than other people could even imagine doing. And it's the same thing with business. It's like people think that entrepreneurship is like, it's freedom and it's money and it's enjoyment and it's doing what you're passionate about. It's like, no, it's doing more of what you enjoy, but really most of the time it's getting up and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. But you just happen to enjoy those boring things a little bit more than most people. So your discipline carries you more. I think everyone has the same amount of, obviously discipline is kind of a muscle you can build, but I think most people have the same amount of willpower, the same amount of discipline, but it's implemented in the wrong things. It's like if you don't enjoy getting up, like we were talking about this morning, I don't really enjoy training in the mornings. Like I like it once I'm out there.
Well, I invited him to go for a run this morning.
Look, once I'm out there, love it. It's amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. The cold air, the sun coming up, I love it. But going from bed to the front door, nah. I can't. I would prefer to get up, make a coffee, have a shower, relax, eat some breakfast, get straight to work. So for me, it's like, should I waste my discipline forcing myself to do that? Or should I get straight into my work, have a really strong work day, and then train in the afternoon when I can use my discipline to go further? I think putting your discipline into something and putting your willpower into something that you already have an unfair advantage for, then just sets you up to be amazing.
Do you think discipline is like a battery that you have throughout the day though.
Yeah.
Is that how you, right? Because for me,
finite.
Because for me, I really resonate with Stephen Bartlett's discipline equation. And he talks about he basically just talks about a few key metrics. And if it equals a positive number, you will do the thing and you'll be disciplined. And if it's not, then you won't. So he basically says he wants you to rank from 1 to 10 how much the thing means to you and rank it from 1 to 10. And then the second thing he says is, how much do you enjoy the psychological pursuit of doing that thing?
Yeah.
So how much do you enjoy it? Rank it from 1 to 10. And you add those two numbers up.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, how much friction is there between you and doing the task? How hard is it? How much do you not enjoy it? Or how much challenge and friction is there between yourself and doing the task?
Yeah.
And you add that up and you get a number from 1 to 10. You subtract that number from the first one you got, from those first two, how much you enjoy it and how much it means to you. If it's a positive number, you will be disciplined and do the thing.
Yeah.
And if it's a negative number, you won't stay disciplined and do the thing.
Yeah.
And so you can plug anything that you're trying to do into that equation. Take an example, take the bins out for bin day, right? You go, the pursuit of that is, and he uses this example because in the UK you get fines for if you don't take the bins out.
Yeah.
And so he used the example of going, okay, the pursuit of doing that, I don't enjoy it at all. The friction to doing it, it's like not, it's the friction there is quite high. Like I don't really want to go out and take the bins, but then there's a fine if I don't take it out, and then I'll have smelly bins. And he's like, that outweighs everything else. So I'm just going to do it and I'll be disciplined and do it. Yeah. So I'm really intrigued by how you say it's kind of like it's like a battery where you've only got so much discipline to deploy. So you're like saving it for the afternoon.
But I think it's the same thing. I think like that equation, I actually would then go and say like enjoyment, passion, skill actually make the friction reduce and your enjoyment, the equation increase. So if you can deploy discipline into the things that you already have less friction for and already enjoy it more, you'll achieve way more than most. It's like, let's talk about like content creation. Like if I've got to make 7 videos a week, and for me, that's like, let's say in terms of 1 to 10, in terms of how hard that is for me to do. If I've got to post 7 videos a week and that's like a 3 out of 10 for me, but it's a 6 out of 10 for you, I'm going to last longer than you will. And I'm going to achieve more than you will, because you'll 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 9 months from now go, fuck this, dude. Like I'd rather go out for beers tonight. I'd rather do whatever. I'm not making content today. And you'll miss a day and I won't. And I think that's where it goes into it. It's not necessarily like I'm saving it for the afternoon. It's more like using your discipline to get more out of it, investing your discipline into places that you already have an unfair advantage for, and then you can achieve way more out of that situation. Like it's like the training thing. It's like all the advice with people for fitness is like, look, if you hate running, there's plenty of other cardios. Like if you hate running but you love the rowing machine, get on the rowing machine. Or even like Chris Williamson talks about this. He's like, he hates cardio, but he loves pickleball. So it's like he'd rather go and spend 90 minutes playing pickleball and burn 1,000 calories than he would going for a jog for 90 minutes.
I resonate with that a lot. And also just the book up on the shelf, Atomic Habits, there about implementing small little things into your daily routine and how those small things can compound. It's like if you are not doing any fitness and you struggle to go for a run, well, create as little friction between yourself and the task. Put your running clothes and shoes at the end of your bed, so you don't need to think about that. That's already one thing. That's one little bit of friction that's removed from that. I think all those things are so important.
Yeah. The nuance to this conversation is, and that's vitally important, is that action, the first movement is always going to suck no matter what you do. Your first video that you make for the internet is going to suck, and it's going to be really difficult, and it's going to take you way longer than you expect, but that's normal. Your first run is going to be horrible. Your shins are going to hurt, your feet are going to hurt, everything's going to hurt, but doing it over and over, making more videos, going for more runs, like all of these things will eventually get not easier, but you'll have a better ability to tolerate that friction that you feel. So the nuance to this conversation that's like really important, that you won't have any unfair advantages the first time you do something. So if you're not doing anything with fitness, you're not going to enjoy any form of cardio because all of them are going to suck. But you need to figure out what you can do to make them suck a little bit less until you can find a way to enjoy it. And then like the skill thing, it's like you will enjoy things and you will become more passionate about things as you improve at that thing. I think skill and improvement precedes passion. I don't think you can be passionate about something and shit at it at the same time. I think you have to learn a little bit first and see if you like it and see if you enjoy it, and then you develop passion for it.
100%. But taking that first step's where it all starts. I want to go back a little bit in your journey. I heard you mention on another podcast that you were a personal trainer.
I was, yeah.
You were a PT. So you were 6'2" and 72 kilos and a PT?
No, I was 6'2" and like 72 kilos in year 10, and I was 6'3" and 98 kilos in year 12.
Wow. And you were a PT. Did you do like you did your cert 3 and 4 and something like that?
So I finished school in 2015, and then I just wasn't. I had shocking grades, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And the only thing I kind of had an inkling for was my drawing and architecture. Didn't have the grades. Fitness and sports science. Didn't have the grades. So I decided to take a year off. I had an ex-girlfriend at the time who was from far north as well.
Right.
And she was the first person in my life who was ever like, you don't have to go to uni. Like, you can just take a year off. Because I don't know what sort of school environment you were from on the
State
Goldie,
school,
but
no good.
Yeah, it was very much pick your university degree at the end of year 10, and then like you're locked in and you should know exactly what you want to do by year 12. Whereas I was kind of floating. One, I hated school and it just never really worked with me education wise. And then uni, the idea of going to uni for something I had no interest in was like, why would I do that? So I took a year off. I immediately, like the day I finished school, I went online and applied for like the first cert 3 and 4 course I could find, because I figured I've got a passion for fitness. I might as well do this. And look, I really enjoyed like the working with clients, and I enjoyed like doing that. And it actually got me out of my shell a lot, because it forced me, one, to be around the other people, to be around hundreds of people in the gym every day, and then also deal with clients, and also outreach and, go up to someone randomly and be like, can I help you with something? And then turn them into a client. But I think the fitness thing, the reason why I'm so invested in fitness now is because I think fitness was the only other area of my life that I wasn't talented at, but I realized for the first time that, like what I said, A plus B equals a result. And it first happened. I've got this funny story where my brother, who's 18 months younger than me, is just a ball of talent when it comes to athletic pursuits. He was like the 50 meter butterfly and then the 200 IM for swimming, which are the two worst events, but he was crushing it. I think he was in the top 5 for Victoria when he was like, I think we were both like 12 or 13 years old, and we swam until we were 14. But I just decided, we can pause for a sec if you want while that person's there. Anyway, I just decided where that year with the summer with swimming, I was like, I want to be on the state team with Jackson, because he gets to do that, and I think that's so cool. So I then just over that summer went to more sessions. I started swimming 2 hours before school, 2 hours after school, and I just doubled down. And by the end of that summer, I was on the same team as Jackson and swam at states. And that was the first time in my life. And look, we're 12 years old. So if you actually just invest more time, you get good pretty quick. No one's no one's putting that much effort in. But for whatever reason, I just had this thing in my mind where I was like, Jackson's talented and more talented than you. So you just need to do twice as much as he does and you'll get there. And I did that. And then the same thing happened with cricket. Jackson was like a really good fast bowler. And one summer I was just like, when we were like 15, I was like, I was like pretending to be a spin bowler on like the C team at my school, and like couldn't bat. So like was just not in there. And then that summer I just decided, I was like, you know what? Jackson's a really good fast bowler. I'm going to pick a line against the back fence at my parents' house. And I remember like, and God, if anyone doesn't believe me, go and ask my parents. But I remember that summer I spent like 3, 4, 5 hours a day just bowling the ball as hard as I could at this line, trying to hit these stumps that I drew. And then I'd pick the ball up, go back, walk in, do that. And I did this hours every day for the entire school holidays that summer. And by the end of the summer, Jackson and I were opening the bowling on the first 11 at our school. So it's
where does that come from though?
Don't know.
Why the fuck did you want to throw a thing at a wall?
Competitive. It just made me competitive. And the same thing happened again. So the way I got into fitness is, like I said, I walked out for like the 10 Bs, football, got flattened by the other ruckman because I was a tall kid. And then immediately as soon as I got home, I called my mate who I knew went to a gym. And I was like, where do you go to the gym? And he's like, I go here. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. And are you there now? And he's like, yeah. And I walked down. It was like 20 minutes from my house. Got a membership. And then, yeah, over the course of the next 2 years, I played on like the team for our school, like the first 18 or whatever. The only reason I played was because I was bigger than everyone else. Like I was laying more tackles than touches at one point was the joke.
It's so interesting though, because I reckon there's got to be some common themes from all of those times into business and all your business success now. And like we'll definitely dive into the money you're making now and how amazing and inspiring that's going to be for so many people, because you were just a PT. Yeah. Do you know? Like it's pretty cool to...
I wasn't even like a contract PT. I was like a gym floor working for the gym PT where I was... Yeah, because I didn't have the balls to pay rent. So I was like, nah, I'd take a salary.
Yeah, right. So you just were salary from a gym.
Yeah.
Like a little Snap Fitness or something.
Yeah, I was working at like South Pacific Gym in Victoria.
See, this is crazy, right? And let's go a bit chronological from that point.
Yeah.
From that gym floor, what was next for you there? The freelancing?
Yeah, so I quickly realized because
How much money were you making for context at the gym?
I can't remember exactly, but it was between like 40 and 50,000 a year.
At the gym? Full time at the gym?
Full time at the gym. My first year out. I think it was like, it might have been
How old were you
43 after super. So like 48, 50 or whatever. I was 18. So straight away out of school, which is great money for an 18-year-old. I was stoked. But living at home, and I was working Monday to Thursday. I would then take Friday off, work Saturday, Sunday.
So you didn't go to uni?
No. I went for 2 weeks and then dropped out. But anyway, back to this. And I did that I started that at the beginning of 2016. And then about towards the end of 2016, I kind of realized, because I went from, I would spend most of my time at school in the art department because I was like, I just loved my sketchbooks. That was like the only thing that I felt like, it was like therapy for me. I could just go and draw, and I got rewarded. Like I got a perfect score for my folio at school, and that was like the only good grade I got. But I quickly realized I went from like literally everyday hours drawing to nothing. And towards the end of 2016, I was like, I feel itchy. Like I feel like I need something creative. And I remember doing the logic in my head. I was like, drawing's too time consuming. I can't do that. I don't have enough time. And then I was like, what's something that I could do that wouldn't take me a massive amount of time and I could produce a lot of art pretty quickly? And I was like, photography, that'd be cool. Maybe I'll buy a camera. So I went out and bought, with the money I was making, I went out and bought like an 80D, a Canon 80D and like a kit lens. And then I just like got obsessed. It was immediate. It was like
again, common trait. Like you were throwing the cricket balls at the wall, like all these things. The gym, getting big.
Yeah,
it's this thing. You're like, it's kind of like an excessive. I'm catching this lot. My best friend, I resonate with. I'm a lot of similarities here. Where would you say like an all or nothing kind of? If you're gonna do it, you're gonna fucking do it. That's your mentality behind things.
100 to a fault,
which is a double-ended sword as well when it comes to a lot of negative things too. Like I find people that can have those traits can also go all in with like partying, or they can go all in with all different things like that too.
Yeah, no, I've thankfully never. I mean, this is a whole other story, and I can probably get to it. But yeah, I had a group of my main core group of friends all got really into drugs, alcohol, and partying after school. And I genuinely think the only reason is because I had fitness to wake up for the next morning and I had a full-time job. And I don't want to pretend that I had like good morals and I chose against it. It was just that when they wanted to go to Revs at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, I had to be at the gym at 5 o'clock on a Saturday or a Sunday. So it's like there was just no way for me to do that. And I think, yeah, I very easily could have gone down that road. I mean, even now, like I've never spoken about this, but I have a really hard time. I'm not a big drinker, but I can feel it. I can feel like if I have like a week where I'll have a beer with dinner every day, I can feel it becoming 2 and 4 and 6 and 8, and it never gets there, but I know that's in me, and I know that switch in my head could go at any moment. So it is like it's a double-edged sword. It's like it could be I've invested into things that are positive, but it could just as easily go the other way.
100%. And I think it's wide in a lot of really successful people that I find, because that obsession to really devote yourself to something is where the results lie. It's in any area though. Yeah. Right?
It's addiction to the routine though, I think, is more so. Like it's results driven, yes.
But routine though, because even in negative you can get addicted to it, and that's not routine.
Maybe not routine, maybe habit. Maybe habit's a better word for it. I think I'm addicted to the habit of making content. I'm addicted to the habit of being fit.
I think it's just back to feeling.
Yeah, the feeling of it, yeah, as well.
Because obviously, like, the feeling you get of creating a good piece of content is awesome. Yeah. The feeling you get of making a bunch of money is awesome. Yeah. The feeling you get of helping someone is awesome. The feeling you get after a line of cocaine. You know what I mean? Like it's an addiction to a feeling. Yeah. It's just a matter of which feeling you get addicted to.
And look, I would be silly now to think that I could ever... Like the alcohol thing's a little bit different because I don't think I see the consequences of alcohol as much. But with drugs, it's like... I think if you could bottle up, if you could put into a pill the sensation I get after the run this morning, or after a long, like if I put in a good day of work from like 6 till 3, and I mean like 30-minute intervals, like 30 minutes, 5 minutes off, 30 minutes, 5 minutes off from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. If I put in a good day, that feeling is like, oh my God. Unreal. And if you could bottle up, and then the progression and the idea of like, you know, if I build up to a launch and I launch and it's successful, if I build a product and I release it, it's successful. If I put out a piece of content and I release it, it's successful. If I go for a run and it feels good rather than feels laborious, if I could put a good race, it's like, if I could bottle up that feeling and give it to people, it'd be the most popular drug in the world immediately. And it's like, that's why I'm not like, now I would be lying if I said I could ever, like, the idea of going out and putting anything in my nose or taking anything is no. Why would I do that? Because that's going to kill everything else that I've, you know, enjoy so much.
It's a compounding thing too as well. Like the more you are staying clear of all of that, the more like the good feeling becomes. Like your body is so optimized a lot of the time that when you kind of go against that, it seems so counterintuitive. I'm in a similar boat where it's like, I don't want to go out and party, because the feeling of waking up early and doing something productive, whether that's training or working, is a feeling that gives me a way bigger kick than a few hours of fun at night would be, that then rocks me for a few days straight. It just seems so it's so hectic. I don't really get around it. But let's go to, you got into freelance, you got into this, you picked up a camera for the first time. So talk to me about that.
So I picked up a camera, and I grew up watching like YouTubers. That was my thing. Like I didn't really watch like TV shows. I wasn't like a Family Guy, Simpsons kid. I just watched like vloggers. And this was like early YouTube. This would have been like 2009, 2010, 2011. So I was watching like PewDiePie and Max Tuning, who's like a fitness guy, and like all these people that were early.
Casey
like,
Neistat.
Even Christian Guzman. This was like before Casey. These were like early. These weren't even like vloggers. They weren't like, well, they were vloggers, but it wasn't like the Casey era. It was more just like, you know, Max was making videos about his workouts and the food he was eating, and PewDiePie was making gaming videos and these things. And I just loved following, but I didn't really understand. As a young kid, I didn't separate them from entertainers. I saw them as like actors. I was like, oh, they're untouchable. It's cool what they do, but they're completely untouchable. And then I remember when I picked up photography and I was going down that rabbit hole of obsession and like following, you know, watching all the tutorials and stuff like that. I stumbled across Peter McKinnon, who was like the photographer that, you know, he's still massive. Millions of subscribers. And this was when he was first starting. And immediately it like clicked in my head where I was like, he's making amazing money sharing a creative skill. He's not just like, because I saw all the other vloggers and I thought they had something like when I was a kid, I thought PewDiePie was like, oh, he's like an entertainer, but he just so happens to be gaming. He has an X factor. Whereas I saw Peter McKinnon, I was like, oh, he's just a normal dude who happens to love photography, who's sharing that with the world, and he's making amazing money. And then it just clicked in my head where I was like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it too. And then it just like, that's when I made the Instagram account, and I was like, I want to start sharing my photography. And it was atrocious all of this is still there. If you scroll back on my page, you'll find it in the thousands of posts that I've got up there. But then that kind of led me to, so I didn't start making money from this until 2022, really. Like I made a little bit of money from digital art in like 2019, 2020, 2021.
How much money were you making with digital art?
20 grand a year, 30 grand a year.
So you're still working the job?
Yeah. So no. So this is funny. I actually like at the end of 2017, I decided I was going to be done with personal training, and I decided to move and do a season in Whistler. I was like, I need to get out of here. Like because at the time, I'm sure you relate to this. I was the jacked personal trainer. I was the guy that's like big into powerlifting, and he's a personal trainer. And that was my entire identity. I was like the guy that, I'm a fucking gym junkie. I'm an idiot. And he just goes to the gym and that's all he does. He eats out of Tupperware containers. Like that's his life. And the idea of like transitioning into being a freelance photographer was like too much. So I was like, I need a degree of separation. I need to go somewhere and do something. So I went to Whistler to do a ski season over there, and just like spent the money that I'd built up. I sold my car and spent the money that I built up from personal training. And I got there and I was like, you know what? No one knows me here except for the friends I was there with. I'm going to try I could get a bartending job. I could even get a personal training job, but I'm going to try get something that's related to the thing I want to do. So I got a job as a on-mountain photographer, filming and photographing for people that were like skiing for the day. So with the company I work for, I only made like $11 an hour. It was nothing. And I had to risk my own gear. We had no insurance or anything. And I would snowboard around following people, taking photos of them as I was like snowboarding. It was the coolest job ever. But I got that, and that kind of gave me the confidence. And then I naively thought that this trip, I had like 800 followers on Instagram before I left. I was like, this trip is going to make me. I'm going to come back. I'll have hundreds of thousands of followers. This is it. Really, I went there and didn't actually make that much content, and got back and I had like 1,000 followers. But when I got back, I think from memory, I had like $800 to $1,000 to my name. And I was like, that can go a long way when you're living with your parents. I moved back, or was still living with my parents at the time. And I was like, I either need to figure this out, or I need to go back and get a job as a personal trainer. So I got really lucky. I did rowing when I was at school, and that was kind of the sport that I moved to after cricket, because I was a big guy and I wanted to do it, and it was a lot of fun, and it taught me a lot about discipline and stuff. But a big thing in the rowing community is rowing films. Like people love at the end of the year to make like a big film to like show to everyone that your team is
this
good.
Boat
so
rowing, or what type of
boat rowing? So like universities will do this, schools will do this, like rowing clubs will do this, the Australian rowing team, Victorian rowing team, they'll all make a film every year. And I knew this because I was in the film that my school made when I was there. It wasn't very good. It was like one other kid from my year, but I had a camera, and I also had like one of the first DJI drones or something at the time. And my brother happened to be rowing that year at the school, and he told the head coach, he's like, oh, my brother has a camera, he could come and do it. And then the head coach called me up and he's like, do you want to come down and film for us and just make something, put it together? I had no experience with videography or anything at this point. I knew my camera could do video, but I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come down. Fuck it, why not? So I went down, made this video. They liked it. We posted it, and it did okay. I got, a good amount of views for them. But then on my own accord, Head of the River was happening, which is like the final race of the year. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm just going to make something of the day. It's going to be for me. My brother's racing anyway, so I'd like to watch him. And we'll see what happens. And I went down and I filmed this video, which I called Brothers in the Boat. You can probably still search it on YouTube, because I was watching like Band of Brothers and I thought it was really corny. It was corny as, but I thought it was funny at the time. But I made this video and I posted it on YouTube, and it got like 120,000 views.
Wow.
In like 3 months. And immediately what that did was the school that I filmed for, immediately in their mind, they were like, oh, that's 120,000 leads for kids at our school. And if, he paid me, the coach paid me, like we didn't quote each other or anything. At the end of the video, he was like, what do you want? And I was like, $300. And he sent me $300, which to a school is nothing. Which, took me to $1,100 in net worth, which I was stoked about. But I did that video, and then immediately afterwards, I completely booked out the next 12 months of rowing films. I then got contacted by gyms and stuff to film some videos for them because it's sports related. I started shooting for some boxers. There were a few rugby players that were trying to get contracts over in Europe, so I filmed their reels for them. I think in that first year, I made like 65,000 Australian just off freelance. And that was kind of like, I went from not
Seems
overnight.
Low though, like surely you were charging more.
But I was stoked.
Yeah.
I was like, look, like I had $800.
Job.
No,
Yeah.
I had $800, and I was either gonna have to go back to my boss and be like, I know I quit, but can I have my job back? Or go and get another job somewhere else, or figure this out. And to figure it out on my own accord. And look, like I can't emphasize how scrappy it was. Like I didn't pay my taxes for the first 2 years because I didn't know how to run a business. Like I had no ABN for that first year, so it was just messy as. But it was that was the first time where I realized I was like, oh, you can kind of just make money out of thin air. Like you can make your own money. And then I kept doing, the year after I did wedding videography. I started a wedding videography business called Cherie Weddings. We didn't do very well, but it existed. And then, I really enjoyed shooting some weddings. And then that led to 2019 where COVID happened. My business was kind of eliminated overnight. And at the time I had about 80,000 followers on Instagram for my digital art thing, which was completely separate.
80,000 followers.
Yeah, no one even knew I had my videography business. No one even
Is that the same page that your page is now?
Same page.
80,000 followers for digital art.
I had 80,000 followers of digital art, and I, obviously JobKeeper. I got paid by JobKeeper because my business depreciated. So, I didn't really have to work in 2020, and then 2021 was even more money from JobKeeper, which is insanity.
$750 a week or something, was it?
It was $750 a week to start, but then there were a bunch of like grants that they were giving out in 2021 that were like $5,000 a pop, $10,000 a pop, that they were just giving to people for basically businesses that couldn't function. And my business had not made any money since like January of 2020. I couldn't make a penny in
that thing. I got unlucky, to say the least, with that one.
I got super lucky. It just so happened that, it just, because they measured from like September to September. So it was like, what are the chances? So how much
money were you making with digital art?
Like I said, like 20 to 30 grand a year.
Yeah, right.
Nothing. It was like, I would get a couple brand deals. I tried to release a Photoshop course in like the end of 2020 when, like I hadn't really done any freelance work. And look, all throughout this time, I was still doing like every now and again, I'd do a freelance job. I still did the rowing videos every year to kind of supplement my income. And then the COVID years were a bit interesting, but I still made enough to kind of not have to get a job. That was essentially my goal. It was never like, let's scale this to the moon.
So when did it all change?
So I tried to release a course in 2020, and that was kind of like, for me in my mind, I was already feeling some misalignment with like my digital art and everything I was doing on social media. And then the person
course? Is that
yeah. So my work back then was I would take like 20 images from the internet and I'd turn it into like an artwork for people. I could probably send you some artworks. You can probably throw them up. They're pretty cool. Yeah. I even like them. Like some of them are hanging up in the house places, not in this room. Or that canvas there is one of my artworks.
Yeah, cool. I'll pop some up on the screen so everyone can check them out. But I'm keen to see them. I love art.
But I kind of saw this course because I spent like 6 months making it. I spent like 12 grand on like building it, the marketing, the ads, someone to help me with like, I hired like a course consultant or course mentorship to help me with like building it and stuff. I naively went the opposite of what I do now or what I would recommend doing now.
That's probably why you learned to do what you do now.
Why I learned. I just over leveraged the hell out of this thing, and then the course made I think it had 20 sales and made like $5,900, which is like, would have been a massive win if I'd not spent $12,000 on the thing. And that was kind of like, to me, that was the nail in the coffin. And then 2021 rolled around, and this was when I was starting to like, I got out of a relationship, and I found myself like kind of not the best shape I'd ever been. I was going to the gym like twice a week. And then when COVID happened, I just stopped exercising altogether. And then I got to this place where I was like, you know what, I'm going to start just running and then riding and then swimming. I had that background in swimming. So I started to like, in 2021, I had this moment where I was like, I don't actually like this that much. I don't like, it doesn't feel aligned with what I want to do long term. But in my mind, I was like, you know what, if it makes money, then it'll be sustainable. So I reinvested more money into relaunching the course, more money to this person that was supposed to help me do it, more money on ads, not as much as 12 grand, but money I didn't really have at the time. And then like a month before I was supposed to do it, I just had this moment where I was so burnt out. I was not enjoying it. I hadn't posted any content in like 6 months. I was just spending the whole time building this thing, and I just binned the entire thing. So there's like a course just sitting on a hard drive that's unreleased that doesn't exist. And yeah, I just binned off the whole thing because I was like, I'm so burnt out. I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. And also coincidentally at the same time, that was during the whole NFT thing. And I was like, digital artist, NFTs, right time, right place. Didn't make a huge amount of money, but made enough for the first time in my life where I didn't have to worry about money for at least the next 12 months. And then JobKeeper was still coming in. So I had this weird moment where for the first time I could actually think about, I felt like I could zoom out a little bit and think more about what I want my life to be long term, rather than just, like I said, my whole goal with my business up until that point was like, how can I make enough money that I don't have to get a job? And that was it.
Were you doing NFTs and stuff, did you say as well?
Yeah. So at the time I was selling my artworks as NFTs, and like I said, I didn't make a huge amount of money. Like some people made millions, but I just made enough that, yeah, I didn't have to worry about money for the next 12 months. So in like June of 2021, I had that moment where I binned off the course. I, stopped working with the people that were helping me to build it and stuff like that. And I stopped making content. And I was like, I'm just going to take this money and I'm going to go do an Ironman. And I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't be fucked. It's not aligned with what I want to do. It's not making any money. It's not worth my time. COVID was still a big thing. So the freelance jobs had completely gone. People were starting to build their businesses back up, but I can't explain the level of burnout. It was like, the idea of going out to a shoot was no, fuck no, I'm not doing that.
So your definition of burnout, what does that look like? Because a lot of people think like, I'm working too much, I'm burning out, but yours seems to be a little. It was like
different.
A
misalignment.
Yeah.
I was doing,
and I think that's where burnout stems from.
Yeah.
I don't think it's from the amount of work. You said before, it's like if you're doing stuff that you actually enjoy,
yeah,
it's like how you're going to burn out doing that.
No, well, yes, I think you still can. I think there's like literal burnout where you've worked too much that even the things you enjoy become non-enjoyable. I think that's a symptom you should look out for. If you're doing stuff and you're like, normally I enjoy this, but I'm not enjoying it, it's probably a sign that you need to give yourself a rest. And I'm much more intentional now. Like I said, I don't work past 3 p.m. most days. I'm very like strict with my training and including that, because I know if I lose, I'm more interested in how many good weeks can I go in a row than how much can I do today. And I think that's a much healthier perspective to do it from.
Consistency for sure. And talk to me about when it all changed in terms of your content, and you decided, all right, no, I want to actually pivot to what you're doing now, I guess, which was when the money and the business really started to take off too. Yeah. What was that moment like, and where did that come from?
So when I finished the Ironman in June of 2022, and I always knew in the last little bit, I was like, I'm going to come back to my business and I'm going to give this one last shot. Like I applied for a job at like a cycling manufacturing company. And it's a big name, I won't say it, but I applied and they turned me down. And that was like April 2022. And that was kind of like the moment where I was I had very little money. I was already paying my rent on a credit card at the time. Like I was fucked. Like McKeely helped me write my resume that I sent to this place, and I like hadn't written a resume in years. But then in June, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna fuck it. Like, look, if I spend another 20 grand on my credit card, who gives a shit? Like, I'm gonna give this one last shot and try and make this work, and keep myself lean and give it a shot. But I've decided in that moment where it was just like the most pure, I just didn't give a fuck about the result. I came back and I'd already quit and I wasn't going to do digital art, and I had 80,000 people who were expecting digital art. So it was just full on, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care what people expect of me. I don't care what people want in terms of my content. I'm just going to make what I want to make, and I'm going to try and make this work. And if it doesn't work, I've already quit. I'll quit again. And immediately, it was like overnight, I started posting like, one day I'd post. It was just pure. It was like I was a beginner again. I was able to experiment, and I was, one day I'd post about my desk setup. The next day I'd post about my house plants, and then I'd post about my training, and it was just like everything. And immediately it was like, people were like, oh, this is a real human being. This is cool. And immediately a few videos did well. And it then started to, at the time I was really invested in, because I come from the creative background where everyone's like really artsy fartsy and everyone's scared of making money. But I knew I needed to make money. So I was investing in like, I don't know if you know, like it's like marketing Twitter. It's like a bunch of people that are really interested in making money, and they don't really care about content, but they know the benefits of content. So there's this whole space, it's called marketing Twitter. And it's these people that are making a shitload of money from like teaching other people marketing and stuff. And I started following like Danko and Jose Rosado and a bunch of these people that are marketing gurus. And I started taking their lessons and investing it in the creative space, which no one in the creative space, everyone's like, oh, I don't want to be too salesy. I don't want to do whatever. And I was immediately like, nah, here's my fucking product. Go buy it. And if you don't like it, I don't give a fuck. And it was like very like organic and real. And I was just like, I need to make money, and I know my products are good. And if you don't like them, I'll give you a refund. I don't care. There's no consequences. I just had no whatever.
Nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
I'm sensing there's nothing to lose. You're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking going for it.
Yeah.
Do you think that moment in your life was it changed the trajectory of your life
fully.
the most part? Or is there another moment in your life that you think?
Fully. That moment was very, it was just it was that positive feedback loop again. It was another moment like the cricket ball, like swimming, like getting bowled over at my football game, and then learning I can change this. It was that moment where, I think I released a product which was like, I'll just talk this through because it's a good story, but I released a product that was like a media kit template, because I was like, oh, a bunch of my followers are creatives. I'll release this. And it made like, to this day, it's made like $1,500, but it made $100 on the first day. And immediately I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then rather than being discouraged by $100, because I invested no money into it, it was just like $100 that I'd made out of thin air. And I made the product that I was already using. So I just templated something I was already using and sending to clients, and then sold it. And then the next week I was like, okay, let's do something that's a little bit more general. And I made like a motion graphics template for my title animations. And I sold that. And that one got to like, I think the biggest day I had was like $250 a day. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is awesome. And then it just became this like, I realized that marketing and business is just a game of conversions. So then I was like, okay, well, if I can get something that more people are interested in, that's more aligned with my content, that is a better product, I'm just going to have more people clicking, more people converting, more money in my bank account. So then I started just throwing products out there. I was like, I made this LUT pack that was for these cameras to make it look the way it does. And I sold that, and then within like that product, hit 500 a day, then 1,000 a day, then 2,000 a day. And I think my highest day was like, from a $29 product, I had a $50,000 month. And I was like, holy fuck, this is, I felt like this moment where I was like, oh, business is just, it's just conversions. It's just how can you make a product that enough people want and then get enough of those people to click on the page? It's like what I said to you. It's like you were telling me about your program's not working, and my first response was like, how much are you pushing it? And you're like, oh, once a fortnight. I'm like, the product's not the issue. You're just not getting enough people on that page. And I think that was the first time that I realized that. And then that's kind of everything I do now. Like, it's so funny. We send during our launches, and people are always shocked by this. During our launches of the program, our core program, Time to Build, we send over a 10-day period, we send between 30 and 40 emails, which people are like, what the fuck? Why so many emails? And I'm like, well, every time I send an email, I get this many sales. So I'm just going to send more emails than everyone else. It's like, it's just a game. Like it becomes this thing where it's honestly just a game of conversions. It's like, can you get more people to click on a link, and can you make sure those people are interested in what you're selling? And then the content thing was just, it was the perfect storm of the feedback loop of the business, but then the feedback loop of me not giving a fuck and me making content for me was well received. And then because up until that point, I was trying to be, in all my content, I was trying to be a version of me that I thought people wanted me to be. I was like, I'm going to be that art guy that makes really cool artworks, that does these things. And that, I spoke earlier about wanting to move to Byron Bay and all these things. And I thought that was more in line with the ocean photographer that does these crazy, I thought that was my, how I was going to be more in line with the person I was supposed to be. And this kind of for the first time showed me like, no, if you just do what you feel connected to, what you are aligned to, you're probably going to connect a lot better with everyone else as a result of it. Mm-hmm. And that moment was just huge. Like everything since then, like even now I get asked all the time from people, they're like, oh, why don't you do YouTube? Why don't you do podcasting? It's like, because I literally haven't found a way to make it align with me. I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. I don't care what my audience wants. Like if they want YouTube videos, but I'm not aligned to it, I don't care. Like it doesn't interest me. And it's really reinforced like longevity and sustainability, and doing things for you is so important. Like I cannot express that enough.
I think it's so cool to see. You're just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall, see what sticks. And the thing is about social media as well, it's immediate feedback loop. Yeah. You post something, an offer, whatever it is, doesn't work. Okay. Maybe it's the wrong thing. Let's try something else. Yeah. You post content, it flops. Okay, maybe people don't like that content as much. Yeah. And it's just an immediate feedback loop, which is so cool for really compounding that growth, because it's not like you're waiting all this time. So like say I've had tech startups in the past where I've been building them for months or years to build up this product, and then you launch it and it's all of this effort's gone into it. Yeah. But as you said before, it's like the model is sell it before you've even built it. Yeah. People don't buy it, refund it, don't even build the thing. Move on. Yeah. It's really cool to see. And you mentioned you did a $50K month selling $29 products or whatever it was. And how many followers did you have back then?
So my followers, like again, the same time my followers went from like 80,000, but I might as well have been at zero because most of those people came from digital art. But I went from 80,000 to like 200,000 over the course of like probably 8 months. Yeah, so I gained like 120,000 followers.
And so during that time, you were starting to grow, and the months were growing, and you were selling more product. And what was this like? Last year or the year before? Or
this was 2022.
2022. Yeah.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah. It's so crazy to see how quickly things can move. Things move so quick, which is crazy. And then you take it that next step further, and you started launching these cohorts. Yeah. You mentioned on the run, you did a course, Ali Abdul, and learn a bunch from him. And that was really inspiring for you. And then you started doing these cohorts. Yeah. Did things just change and go to the next level when you started doing that?
Yeah, so it actually started really organically. Again, back to the thing of like, just try things. Someone asked me to come on their workshop. They were doing like a one-off live workshop. And they were like, come on as a Q&A guest. And, you don't have to speak. You don't have to present, just Q&A. And I got on this thing, and up until that point, I was like, oh my God, a live workshop in person? Like, not in person, sorry, live virtual. It's like, it's going to be so hard to run. How are you going to speak for an hour? What do you even speak about? And I got in this call, and it just completely broke the fourth wall for me. And I was like, oh, this is a piece of piss. I could do this. And immediately, like after this call, I got off, and before the next Monday, I'd already launched the sales page of Time to Build. Like I made like the landing page. And Time to Build is not a well thought out, or it is now massive. It's the last 2 years we've been building it and building it and building it. And it's now a team, and it's this massive business. But when it started, it was something I put together. It was a 45-minute workshop on Zoom that I sold on Gumroad for like $59. And it was just like, why not? Let's see how this goes. And I'd gained a bunch of followers. Like I said, 120,000 in the last like 8 months. So I made it around that. I was like, here's what I see working on social media. I'm going to teach other people. And I did this first one. And I was like, I've got these slides that I talk about in the thing where it's like, again, breaking that thing of like, what's the smallest possible action you can take that can create the positive feedback loop that can do the next thing. So I did this, and I think it made like $8,000 the first time. Like not a lot of money, especially when I was making, $20, $30, $50,000 a month from my LUTs. But I really enjoyed it. I got on this call, and the call went for like 3 hours when it was supposed to go for 90 minutes. It was supposed to be like an hour plus 30 minutes of Q&A. 3 hours later, we're just like riffing with a bunch of people. And then all the feedback came in, and people were like, oh my God, Tom is like such an attentive teacher. He really clearly is passionate about this. And the feedback was amazing. And I really enjoyed it. And it didn't make amazing money, like I said, but it was enough for me to be like, I should do more of these. I really enjoy teaching. Maybe it can be like something I do every 3 months, and it'll make me $10,000 just to supplement my income. And then I did the next one, and I called it Time to Build again. And I got one piece of feedback from someone. It made less money. I think the second one made like $8,000, or made sort of like 6 or 7 or something, $2,000 less than whatever the first one made, and got less people. And I got this piece of feedback from someone. They were like, I really love Tom's content. I really love what he's doing. This was great, but I don't feel like it's that different to the stuff he gives out for free. Because I was just getting on there and telling my story and trying to give advice and give feedback and talk about what I see working. But I do all that in my content anyway. So I think this feedback hit me, and I was like, that's when I remembered the Ali Abdaal moment. And I was like, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I could turn this into something bigger. And it's not that I'm trying to withhold information. It's just that you can only give so much in an hour. And I was like, what if I turn this into 3 weeks, 2 calls a week, 6 calls? And we go over, weeks one is brand, weeks 2 is content, weeks 3 is monetization. And I felt really aligned to it. It scared the fuck out of me. I was like, this makes me nervous. It makes me feel like anxious. And I was like, that's a good feeling, because then I'm going to perform. And I did it. And I charged like $297 or $397. I can't remember what it was. And it didn't go that amazing. I think it made like, God, it's crazy what numbers can not feel amazing now, but it made like $30,000 and had like, I think 89 students or something like that. Maybe more, maybe less. I can't remember. It's something like, it made $30,000. And
for a 3-week course. And again, the feedback came in, and people were like, this is incredible. All the calls went way over time. I was really attentive. We put it on a community platform. The community was buzzing. I loved it. And then also, like prior to this, like I said, I was doing a little bit of one-on-one coaching when people realized I was making money. And then I felt like I was surrounded by creative people who didn't know how to make money. And I was like, I can just take what I know and put it in your business, and you'll make a bit of money. And it was working, but I felt like I was saying the same thing over and over again. So when I wanted to put it in a group setting, it was just out of like, I feel like I'm much more effective and I'll have more impact if I'm telling it to a room of 100 rather than one person. And then it's cheaper as well. It's like someone might have to pay me $1,000 for an hour of my time, but I can give it to them. Like I can give them 5 weeks for $1,000. Yeah.
And then, so I did that third one. The feedback came in. None of that initial like, this is the same as his free stuff. It was all like, this is way beyond what I expected it to be. And then from the first cohort we did, but version 3 to version 4, it went from $30,000 to, that was my first $100,000 month, or first $100,000 launch, Australian. So I think it was like 60 US. And then from version 4 to version 5, we went to 250 Australian or 170 US. And then version 5 to the most recent one went to 300 US or $500,000 Australian. And that was, insanity.
You made 500,000 Australian in one cohort, the
Yeah.
last one that just went.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
Crazy.
good's that? And so it's so funny because I was listening to you on a podcast that you were on about a year ago, and you were saying you were doing between 30 and 50 grand a month.
30 to 50 consistently back then. But that would have been 30 to 50 Australian, I think.
Which was a year ago.
Yeah.
Fast forward 10x that for a cohort.
Yeah.
And you said you're trying to do 4 of those a year.
4 of those a year, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And you're trying to keep growing the cohorts.
Yeah, well, I feel so, I fucking love it. Like it's so, again, this comes back to everything I talked about with like finding your zone of genius, finding the thing that you enjoy or you're passionate about, where your discipline can go further. Cause like the last cohort we did, cohort 5, I've got my like second teacher and my second in command, Daniel. And we had a meeting before it started and I was like, our only goal for the next 5 weeks is to scale the unscalable. Just go so far beyond what our customers expect and give them everything. Like I was answering the entire 5 weeks, every message I would get, I would answer it with a Loom video rather than sending a text. Like everything, every time someone would ask a question that wasn't included in the lesson, I would then make a lesson after the lesson to be then posted in the community. It's like we went above and beyond. And it was just because I fucking enjoy it. I love it.
And you mentioned on the run this morning, you said that for the whole 5 weeks, I'm only focusing on nurturing that community and providing value for that community. Everything else out the window.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hone in on these guys and make sure that they have the most outstanding experience possible.
Well, I think a lot of content creators think that building an audience is building a business, and it's not. You building an audience is just building a marketing vehicle for your business. And I've had this realization. I was like, if I just commit these 5 weeks or these 6 weeks to giving these core group of 183 people the best possible experience I can, all of those people are then going to tell other people about how good it was. And then my next cohort could probably sell out without me even making any content. And it's like, that's such a bet, again, back to the trust thing. That's a much better use of my time than making more content to the people. Because like those 183 people are my diehard fans. So why would I invest any time except investing in those people that are willing to buy into the program? And then also like, I'm a bit of a people pleaser to a fault. Like I hate confrontation. I really just, in every situation, to a fault, I am like invested in them getting a positive outcome. And that extends to my customers. Like I feel like I have this urge to, if someone's, the first week we have this thing where as soon as someone enrolls, we have a bunch of lessons that I put them through that are pre-recorded. And one of them is like, I want you to write down, give us an introduction of who you are. And here's a questionnaire of everything you need to include in that introduction to really give me an insight of like, what are you passionate? One of the questions is just like, what do you do in your spare time on Saturday afternoon? And it's like, give me an insight into who you are. What's the type of person you are? And that reading all of those at the start of the cohort, I see the money they've spent, and then I see their face, and I see their passions, and I see their goals. And that just like switch in my head goes, oh, nothing else matters except helping this person. And that's obviously a positive thing in business, but not always a positive thing in life. Like sometimes you need to be willing to let people down. But I think in terms of my business, it's been nothing but positive.
It's so amazing. It's so inspiring to see. It's like personal trainer working, don't want to risk paying for the rent. I'm just going to be that.
Yeah.
Just slowly building it up, making 20, 30 grand, selling prints, digital prints, and then slowly building that up and up and up, 100K a month. And then to doing $500,000 in one launch.
Yeah.
And you mentioned what you're sending 30 emails in 10 days.
Yeah, 30 to 40 emails me and my writer will send. When
promoting it. It's so crazy. And I think like when you tie it back to, as you said before, okay, you're only promoting your products once a fortnight. Of course you're not making sales. Yeah. Your whole thing is like flipping on its head going, nah, fuck no. Every single post, I'm just going to try and make sure I'm promoting something little in there. Yeah. It's so fascinating. You make all the money and you're killing it, making so much money with all the stuff you're doing online. You mentioned it's like once you climb one, it's like the next step's even bigger, and the gap just keeps growing, and it makes it more challenging to keep leveling up. Like, what do you think the biggest challenge is in your life right now, post having all this money and earning all this money? Like, what's some challenges that you're going through right now with having all the money? Because people just think it's sunshine and rainbows off the back of that after hearing those stories.
I think the challenges are, I mean, a positive straight away is like, I don't think I'm, ironically, back to like the not wanting to risk it to be a personal trainer. My goal is not to be like worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I couldn't give a fuck about that. My goal is to live in a beautiful house, live a pretty comfortable life, go on a couple of holidays and make enough money to drive a nice car. Like I want to drive a Porsche at some point. So that's the extent of my goals. I think the goals of my impact are big, but not goals in terms of money. So the money's like, I feel like it's not fucked me up as much as it does for some people. I think some people get caught in this trap of like, you know, they make a bit of money and then they go and buy a nice car straight away, or they go and do something straight away. And I think one of the things that I've heard recently, which is really good to hear, is that entrepreneurship isn't getting to the highs. Entrepreneurship is how you deal with the consequences of falling off that high. So like all of us, no matter how, me included, my business undoubtedly at some point in the next 5 years will hit either a roadblock or a full-on fucking nosedive. And it's going to be in, do I have the stomach to deal with coming back from that? Because I've seen that so many times with some of my friends where, you know, I've had friends build their businesses to hundreds of thousands a month, and then something changes overnight. You know, the space goes from photo to video. You know, it goes from written word to whatever. You know, everyone who makes a podcast now has to have 2 cameras, and that's the minimum. Like it used to be just microphones. Now this is the bare minimum. It's like some people don't pass through that. There would have been a lot of audio only podcasts that were making a lot of money, that then the space changes and they didn't keep up, and now they don't exist. And I think that's kind of entrepreneurship, and I think that's why I'm glad I don't have those massive goals, because the money's not, it's not how I judge myself. It's not how I do that. But to be like honest, I think people think that, look, money does solve a lot of problems. It does. The idea, like, it sounds simple, but I fucking love going to Coles and not even thinking about the money. Do you know how nice it is to go buy groceries and not think about,
look at the price,
not look at the price, like not worry about eating nice food. Like it's like I can go and I can eat a steak every day, and it's like it's not an issue. Whereas in the past, it's like I remember back in like 2019, 2020 when I was really stressed about money. I remember I had this goal with myself where I was like, how many 0 days can I have in a row? And it's like I would buy tins of beans. I would buy quesadilla wraps, like the resealable ones, so I can put them in the freezer. And I would just be like, how many 0 days in a row can I have? How can I buy something for like $20, and then how many days can I get out of it? And it's like, it's fucking crazy. And it's like, that's so fucked up that that's something that people have to deal with. But it's the little things that really, you know, your life will improve in making more money, but your problems don't go away. Like the idea that you're just going to be a happier person is bullshit. If you're unhappy and you're making no money, you'll be less stressed making more money, or arguably not, because your business will be harder to manage, but you're still going to be unhappy. Like I think I have really bad anxiety. That's like something it's the burden to bear. And my anxiety manifests in like high stress. It's a result of high stress, but my anxiety is like health anxiety. So like when it's bad, like I had, you know, in April, that's when we made $500,000 in a month. That was also probably the worst month mental health wise I've had in years. Like I had a really long bout of depression when I was like, it's probably 17 to 21. And like I said to Makili the other night, we were laying in bed, I was like, I think I'm depressed. Like I'm really just a bit shit at the moment. And my anxiety manifests in like, I won't convince myself I'm sick. I'll convince myself I'm dying. So like I'll if I'm really stressed, I'll spiral to the point where I'll get up in the morning, and I had this thought the other day. I was sitting at work and I couldn't bring myself to do anything because I was like, oh, Tom, you're going to die like next month. Like, you really need to make sure McKeely has access to all your, she knows the login details to your bank accounts and stuff so she can keep paying for this house. Like, you really need to sort out, have you written a will? Like, you're going to die. And it's just like, that's the spiral my head will go down. Like, I'll feel a niggle in my ear or my thigh or my balls or something, and I'm like, immediately, you're going to die. And I don't know why. And it's something that I've had before I made money, and it's something I still deal with now. And I think people think that those problems are going to go away. Sometimes it can make it worse. Sometimes the stress that you experience, you know what? Like, you might, I think it comes back to this entrepreneurship thing. People think entrepreneurship is money and doing the things you enjoy and all that sort of stuff. It's like, you're also buying yourself up for an extremely stressful work life where imagine if you've got a mortgage and you've got a car repayment and you've got a credit card and you've got a partner who doesn't work, and all of that money is on your back. Like, you don't get a salary. You don't know how much money you're going to make next month. Even though I've had amazing months, I don't know how much money I'm going to make next year. It could be fucking zero. I don't know. It's like, that's the added stress of doing this. It's not the same as a paycheck. It will never be the same as a paycheck. And you need to be okay with that. So I think the main thing for people to understand is I don't believe in this bullshit of money doesn't buy happiness. It does. It alleviates enormous stress. And I think the people that say that probably grew up with a bit of money and they don't really understand what broke feels like. But I think at the same time, it's not going to change your life. It's not going to change who you are. It's not going to fix your problems. It's not going to make you less anxious. It's not going to fix your depression. You're still going to be the same person. You'll just have more digits in your bank account.
When you're lying in that bed and you're saying, and you're going I think I'm depressed. It's a pretty hectic thought to feel. And it's that part of the iceberg that no one sees, right?
Yeah.
But what are you feeling in that moment?
It's such a weird one. I went to the doctor because I started seeing my therapist again, who I've seen for a few years for all sorts of things. And my doctor was he said to me, because I walked in and I was like, I'm really anxious at the moment. And obviously the doctor has a duty of care. I also moved to down here, so I got a new GP. And he pulled me aside. He's like, can I ask you an honest question? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, do you think about killing yourself? Do you think about do you not want to be here anymore? And I said to him, I was like, no, that's the crazy part is I'm every other area of my life. And that comes back to the thing of it might make it worse. Every other area of my life, my business, my relationship, this big, beautiful house I'm in, everything, the money in my bank account, the investments I've got, the security I have, the life I've built, the business I've built, the enjoyment I get out of my work, the fitness I have, every other area of my life is incredible. Not even just good, it's fucking amazing. I love it. And I'm very happy, and I consider myself a very happy person. I just think I have this weird thing in my brain that just has it's probably back to a little bit of that introspection, overthinking, introverted mind that spends a lot of time going over things over and over again. And I think that's led to a state where, I just I feel kind of sad all the time, and I don't really understand why. And it's I think that's just, look, it's also just, I know I've lived with my anxiety enough years to know that when I'm stressed, it's bad. And obviously big launches, your business growing, moving house. We just bought this house, and all these things are stresses that are going to add to your plate. And my previous doctor in Melbourne explained it to me, because I got on CBD as a alleviation for stress, and then I started seeing a therapist and stuff, and he explained it to me. He's like, stress is an interesting one where, and I also started a lot of this, it's like a cycle, my stress creates negative symptoms in my body because my body's not dealing with the stress well. So then my anxiety sees those symptoms as cancer. And then that spiral creates more stress and more symptoms and all the way up to the top. So he explained it to me. He's like, stress is an interesting one because people who think they can tolerate stress are just living at 8,000 RPMs. They're like rev limiters going like, all the way at 8,000 RPMs. And they might be able to manage 8,000 RPMs. But then a bill's not paid or something goes wrong. Or, last year we had to rehome a puppy that we got because the two dogs that we had didn't get along. And that was a really stressful situation. So like that, the house, my business growing, that put me to 8,200 RPMs. And those extra 200 gave me all the consequences of living at 8,000 RPMs at once. And he explained it. It's like a stair. It's like falling off a cliff. Like you'll be climbing, and then you get to the point where you can't get past it, and it just all comes crumbling down. And I think that's why stress is such a fucking crazy one. And this whole last 12 months, and again, it comes back to this thing of I work from 6 to 3, and I'm really strict with that. And it's because I think I work better in that time, and 2, because I want to continue my training, but also because I know it'll fucking kill you. Stress will kill you. It'll put you in the ground a lot faster than anything else will. And I think people really underestimate, like, I had a family friend or a friend of mine who had a family friend who he got cancer when he was like 42, and he was like a successful business person. And he was like, how do you think you got it? Like, you're healthy and fit and all that sort of stuff. He's like, stress too much. And obviously that there's no way of proving that, but they do talk about how cortisol is, it can impact the growth of cells and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think like it's taught me a lot about how stress is something that you really need to be conscious of. And you might think you're a hard nut and you're like, nah, I can deal with it, I can do this. You can right now, but what's a breakup going to do? What's breaking a bone going to do? What's an extra bill going to do? What's a family member getting sick going to do? Are you going to be able to deal with that if all of those things also happen? And what kind of person are you going to be as a result of all that stress coming and hitting you all at once? I think, yeah.
It's so hectic. And like the thoughts and those spirals that you say you go into is so crazy. Is there a thing in your mind that goes like something needs to change? Like I can't keep living like this.
Yeah, no, the moment that really clicked for me like earlier this year was when I was just like having these weird symptoms and I was stressed out of my mind and my business was getting bigger, and I wrote in my journal, because I write a page every morning. It's something that like really helps me a lot. And people who think it's like, what are you writing? Literally whatever spills out of me. I'll get up in the morning, I'll be like, I'm liking this coffee, and then I'll just go from there. But it really helps me. And one of the things I wrote that really like clicked it for me, I was like, something needs to give. And it felt like that. It was like, something's gonna fucking break if I don't do something. I felt like a car that was not supposed to run that hard, and I was pushing it way too hard. So I think, yeah, it was kind of just a moment where I realized, yeah, it needs to change. And even this is as recent as the last like few weeks. Like even last week I had Friday, I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this the attention it deserves. And almost like immediately as a result of like, now when I find myself just like antsy, I'll get up and go for a half an hour walk. And it's like, yeah, I know I could be working that half an hour and it's probably coming at the detriment of my business, but I'd rather do that. And now without exception, like I make sure I eat enough. I make sure I eat breakfast in the morning. I make sure I do things. And this might sound so simple to people, but I hope people with anxiety and who are super stressed look at this and like, fuck, I kind of need to do that too. It's like, it really is the little things that you do every day. Like this last week has been honestly like really good, which is awesome. But it's come as a consequence of like me giving it the attention it deserves. So, yeah.
Do you get scared?
Of that anxiety?
Just of the future?
Actually, like I get...
Like this feeling of, is this pain and this battle with my own mind, is this ever going to end? And the fear of this annoying feeling and stress compounding, and do you ever get scared of that?
I actually don't. No.
It just hits you when you're not expecting it?
Yeah, no, I don't actually have that much fear of the future. I think I actually have like a kind of an unwavering confidence in. I think it comes back to, proving myself right a few times in a few key things. I think I just have this like confidence of I'll figure it out. Also, I've been, as amazing as this situation is, like, I've been broke. Like, I'm not that scared of the consequences. Like, yeah, it'd suck, but also like there's a lot of like, I'm not scared of going back to $60,000 a year or being broke or having to pay with my credit card. I'm not scared of like selling everything I own. I'm not scared of all these sort of things and then also at the same time as not being scared of those things, I am way more confident in my ability to, it's so funny. I speak to my audience will know this, but I make jokes about owning a GT3 RS, like a Porsche GT3 RS with my content. And it comes across like a joke because I'll include it in my marketing, I'll include it in my emails, I'll include it in content. But I'm fucking dead serious. I'm going to drive one and it'll happen in the next 2 or 3 years and I'll own it in cash and it'll fucking sit in a garage that I build or have to rent and then that'll happen. And it's so much to the point where like McKeely's parents will talk about me letting them use their garage to park my Porsche that I don't own yet. That's how much it's like a confidence that just spills out of me. And it is very much like, yeah, I have I said to McKeely when we bought this house, I'm like, I'm going to pay it off in 3 years. And it's like, that's not something I've like said to myself. That's like gonna happen. So I think it is just like a confidence. This is why it's so like, I think more people, I'm glad I'm talking about this because I think when I hear some people talk about mental health and stuff, I can sometimes sit there and go like, it's so funny because I struggle with it a lot, but I can also sit and look at people and go, you could be doing like just a couple things. Like there's just a few things you could be doing and you'd feel so much better. But then I look at myself and I'm like, I have that confidence and I have everything going well and all this sort of stuff and I still feel anxious. So I hope this is kind of relatable to some people that probably are in the similar boat to me where it's like, you know what, I'm a pretty happy person, but I just feel sad sometimes. Yeah.
Dude, I want to commend you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you've been thinking about, you wanted to share or, anything that's exciting that's coming up that you'd want to let everyone know about?
I'm stoked. Look, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, just drop me a follow on Instagram. And
I'll leave all of Tom's stuff in the show notes below. I'll leave his website so you can check out that. But then also on Instagram, he posts amazing content, provides a lot of value. And I just want to commend you, man. It's really awesome to, we've been speaking for 2 hours now. Time flew.
Yeah,
we're speaking for 2 hours now. And I really appreciate how we can, talk about business, talk about different things that's your upbringing, but then also be open and vulnerable and talk about the challenges that you're going through. So you inspire me a lot and I'm really motivated off the back of this conversation, which is also a great feeling to have. So I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Likewise too. I think I said this before we started, but it's like, it's awesome to see someone actually going hard. I mean it when I say like, I've been on a few podcasts where people are like, oh, this is something I do on the side. And I think what you're doing is really pushing and it's exciting to see. And I think it'll, I have no doubt that this podcast will be, top one in the country for whatever, maybe globally in a few years. So
wow,
keep it up.
Mate, I really appreciate it. I'm trying. And I think as we said before the show, I go like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Properly. And I'm going to try and copy the greats, which everyone can do. Everyone can have access to that, but people somehow don't seem to have that really high standard. And for me, I want to strive towards that. So I really appreciate you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you've stuck around and you're not sick of my voice yet, my God, been speaking for 2 hours yapping on, but I really appreciate you guys. It'd mean the world if you could hit that subscribe button or follow whatever platform you are watching or listening to this on and leave us a good review on Spotify or Apple. It helps the show grow, helps us to get amazing guests just like Tom on the show. But without further ado, that is us done for today. Thank you so much, Tom.
Beautiful.
And I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for having me on.